Good morning, America. This is the Cats Roundtable. John Catsimatidis here, Sunday morning. With us today is Dr. William Parker. Dr. Parker has been CEO of the East-West Institute, and he's also was in the Navy for 30 years, retired, and he was Chief of Staff to the U.S. Naval Surface Forces. Good morning, Dr. Parker. And now I understand you are working on technologies to make certain ships more fuel efficient. And Dr. Parker, you are working on technologies to make the ships of today more efficient. Tell us about that.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, it's great to be back on your show, Mr. Catsimatidis. We are Parker Maritime Technologies has a series of patents and patent pendings that work on making ships more fuel efficient by reducing the drag across the hull. So we're pretty excited about what we're offering to ships around the globe.
Understood. Tell us what the heck is going on in Taiwan.
Yes, sir. I think before you say where we are in Taiwan, you have to say how the rest of the world looks at us. So they have watched the debacle as we departed Afghanistan, otherwise executed pretty well by the U.S. military. Certainly challenges, but done pretty well. They're watching that NATO, led by the United States, is not physically supporting what's going on in Ukraine, and watching a country that was the third largest nuclear power that gave up their nukes at the request of the United States and Russia with the promise to be protected. And so the world is watching this. And so now China is watching it too. So in March, China put out a report, their annual report, that for the first time states that they are very interested in ensuring that this Taiwan issue gets resolved. In other words, that it's now a one China with Taiwan completely under and not as a separate government under China. And with Xi Jinping 69 and looking at his future, I believe he does not want to pass this issue on to the next leadership in China. So that's where we're at with that. As far as their military goes, they have an army that's twice as large as ours now. They have a navy that's now larger than ours. Not as competent, not as capable, but numbers matter, and they're certainly growing rapidly. And you can see there's intent there by the Chinese to work in Taiwan and to potentially seize it sooner than later.
Understood. And the big picture in China is traditionally China built walls to keep their people in and keep their culture in. Is this a new China? What do you think?
That's a great point you make there. And the reality is that I think that they are like a very fat person in a suit, and they need to take their belt and open it up another hole or two. And so they have to expand at this point. They need more natural resources. They need a place to put their people. And so they are expanding. They're looking for natural resources to do that. They're also looking at all the financial implications of what is happening in Russia. The fact that the ruble has grown by 40% is significant in the past month. They still have a great number of threats against them if sanctions were put on them like they were on Russia. But I think this is something they're looking at and saying it looks like Russia might be able to survive because of the cost of commodities like oil, that Russia may be able to survive these sanctions. And if they can, then maybe China can too. And I think this is something that they looked at hard in their March meeting that they had with all of their senior economists.
Understood. But since we bring up Russia, let's spend a few minutes on Russia. Kissinger made some interesting remarks the other day that a lot of people are up in arms in. How do you feel about that?
You know, Henry Kissinger, when he speaks, people should be listening very carefully. And I think the nation and the world right now is scratching their head on why we're not doing anything more significant with Russia. Yes, there's sanctions. Yes, we telegraphed that way in advance that we were going to have these sanctions. And so there were preparations made not only in Russia, but also in China on how you can get around these. Do you move money through other countries like Saudi Arabia and others? Do you increase price of your commodity so that you don't have to sell as many. And I think that's what's happening right now. And certainly when you look at the debacle of what is going on in Russia and in Ukraine, and the fact that there are now mass murders, there are exportation of large populations to other places. Sound familiar? Kind of sounds like World War II again, where we're moving large populations to other places outside the country where they were living. And then this is a major concern. And at some point here, some serious military action needs to be taken beyond just the sanctions and providing weapons and expecting them to be able to defend themselves.
There's such a fallacy going on right now. We put sanctions on Russia, and the ruble went down to nothing. Now the ruble is higher than ever because the European countries are still buying a lot of product from Russia and paying in rubles, so the ruble's back to normal. And the United States is using Putin to negotiate with the Iranians. The United States is using Putin to negotiate with Venezuelans for more oil. I mean, and the people that are suffering, they're going to be drafting 16-year-old kids in Russia, I understand, kids that are dying in the fields.
Well, I agree with everything you said, and I'd also say the people that are suffering are people here in the United States that are paying, I think in California it's $6.50 a gallon or something now and rising.
We're moving the wealth from our country. The American people are getting poorer, and the rest of the world is getting richer. That's what's happening because of the price of oil.
So yes, it's terrible what's happening in Ukraine. Absolute disgusting, quite frankly. It's terrible what's happening to the Russian people that are forced to fight in this war, which they don't want either. And it's interesting to see that the power of China in many ways is increasing. They're building new submarines right now, and other ships. And we need to be very concerned about this, and we need to get our act together and start acting again like the superpower that we have been for the last 4 or 5 decades.
What do you think China wants to do? Are they willing to take a chance on war? Are they willing to take a chance on being sanctioned?
If you would have asked me this 2 months ago, and actually you did ask me this 2 months ago, I said probably not, because they're interested in stability, et cetera. But as they're watching this play out in Ukraine, as they're watching this play out around the globe right now, I think there's more and more possibility that they're saying this may be our only shot in a very long time to do this. And so I think they're looking at it very hard. The other thing is we've laid out our playbook on how we do economic sanctions. They've watched what the Russians have done to be able to counter that. And I think they're looking right now as whether or not they can weather that storm economically. And if they can, I think they try to roll into Taiwan. Now, it's not a walk in the park. That's going to be a tough fight for the Chinese, because the Taiwanese are a very capable military, but they are outnumbered in a major way. And they have all the resources they need in mainland China to roll into Taiwan if they want to. Dr.
William Parker, thank you for your input. And on this Memorial Day weekend, God bless America. And we really, really, really need God's blessing. And thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.